忍の時代は終わる。
螺旋が
Full spoiler for Chapter 17 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. The Damon versus Jura part is completely fake. It doesn't appear in the Chapter 17 spoilers. There's no moment where Damon tries to prove his strength against Jura. For the first time, no one has been able to provide digital raws as usual for this chapter. Here, I'll explain everything that happens in Chapter 17 in detail, but before we get into it, please like and subscribe, guys. Thanks. Chapter 17, with the title, A Newborn Beast. The chapter begins with Sarada, who is still feeling uneasy about her thoughts after Sumire's words in the previous chapter kept lingering in her mind. Currently, Sarada is on a mission with the others, but her thoughts seem distracted, making it hard for her to focus. This is because of Sumire's remarks about Sarada not considering her feelings when she hugged Boruto in front of her. With Sumire's heartfelt confession to Sarada, the situation now makes Sarada feel as if she's deeply at fault. As a result, she loses her focus. On the other hand, Matsuri, who is currently in the Land of Sand, the two of them who have previously found a clue from Boruto's toad, feel that they should be able to use the voice of the tree. I don't know what Matsuri means by this, but if analyzed as a divine tree human, they have a special technique to sense the presence of Boruto and his friends. With the voice of the tree, it will make it easier for them to find Boruto and the others. Because basically, Matsuri said that Boruto was the one who dropped the toad here, and one thing is for sure, Matsuri said that it was known from the tree that said so. And that means Matsuri thinks that Boruto is here, and that there is no mistaking it. And hearing what Matsuri said, Ryu's response sounded the same as us guys. He was so confused about what Matsuri meant about the trees. Even about Boruto being in this desert, Ryu felt that it made him not understand. But because of that, the Matsuri explains that trees are everywhere, even under the ground. On the other hand, Yodo and the others were on a hill while monitoring them. Yodo said that they came here following Boruto's trail and there was no mistaking it. And even from Matsuri's ability to detect Boruto's presence, including the clue of a toad, Yodo assumed that Matsuri was a sensor-type Shinju. And because of that, it was now a matter of time before they knew where Yodo and the others were on the hill. After all, if they were in range and also around the tree, it would be a trigger for their presence to be known by the Matsuri. But regarding that, Konohamaru said that for now it was as the intel said. But seeing Sarada as if she was daydreaming, Konohamaru confirmed to Sarada whether everything was all right. And, well, Sarada for once was completely unfocused after the previous conversation with Sumire. And then on the subject of defeating the Ryu or the Matsuri, Yodo asked Konohamaru about Shinki. Konohamaru-sensei, so if we can defeat Ryu and get the Togedamma, that means we can save Shinki, right? And as someone who had gotten information about the Togedamma as well, Konohamaru said it should be like that. Because basically, according to the intel Konohamaru knew, that was the reason why they were here. And since it's about Shinki's safety, Yodo is eager to help Konohamaru defeat the Ryu and get the Togedamma. But about that, Araya warns Yodo not to be rash and do something impossible. But upon hearing that, Yodo refused to accept the advice and declared that she would do anything, even the impossible, to save Shinki. And because the situation between the two of them became tense, Konohamaru reminded them not to argue with each other. He emphasized that if they fought, it would complicate the mission to save Shinki. Before the mission began, Konohamaru tried to ensure that everyone fully understood the plan. However, Mitsuki seemed hesitant and unsure whether the plan would succeed or not. Still, as the leader of this mission, Konohamaru reminded everyone to stay focused on the task at hand. Moments later, they set off and met with Ryu and Matsuri. And this is where Konohamaru's plan seems to start. They pretend to be ordinary people who don't understand what Ryu and Matsuri really are. Even with the form of Shinju, they seem to be treated like ordinary people. With a plan that had never been imagined before, Konohamaru asked Ryu and Matsuri who they were and what they were doing here. And this is completely unexpected. Matsuri's response to seeing Konohamaru was shocked after seeing Konohamaru in person. And at the same time, Konohamaru introduced themselves that they were ninja from Konoha, and their purpose here was to follow the instructions about Boruto. Even in front of Ryu and Matsuri, Konohamaru called Boruto the traitor, which aims to make Ryu and Matsuri feel that they have the same goal, and also so that they are not suspected. And not only that, Konohamaru also asked Matsuri and Ryu about their identity. So far, the plan was still going normally, and Ryu felt that they didn't recognize them at all. And so Ryu asked Matsuri what to do now. But instead of giving an answer, Matsuri felt that she was becoming very strange now that she was around Konohamaru. Even because of that, Matsuri also told Ryu to speak to them. But before that, there was a flashback of the conversation between Shikamaru and Team 7 before this mission started. A simple flashback that increased Konohamaru to focus on getting Togedamma. There was no need to defeat Shinju because the most important thing was to get Togedamma. If this is true, then it means that there are two ways to get to Togedamma besides having to destroy the body of a Shinju. This is very interesting. And this flashback, the important point is the explanation of Togedamma to Konohamaru before going on a mission to the Land of Sand. Even at this moment, Konohamaru said something very important about how to bring back Moegi and Shinki. Shikamaru explained that if the Togedamma is returned to its original place, it should restore the lives of either Moegi or Shinki. Most likely, to restore the form of the Shinju after it was defeated, the Togedamma must be placed on top of the black cube. However, to bring someone back to life, they need to return the Togedamma to the place where they originally became a tree. This is very interesting, isn't it? And although Konohamaru was initially doubtful about this, Shikamaru assured him to trust the plan, emphasizing that this was reliable intel. Togedamma Matsuri was for Moegi, and Togedamma Ryu was for Shinki. However, Shikamaru explained that even if they fail to retrieve the Togedamma, their opponents could still come back to life. As long as the Togedamma exists, defeating an enemy is essentially wasting time, as they can endlessly revive. That was Shikamaru's key point. The main question remains, where exactly is the Togedamma located within the Shinju? After all, to obtain the Togedamma, wouldn't they need to destroy the Shinju itself? Oh, and there's more. Shikamaru also mentioned Boruto defeating Hidari, causing Hidari's Togedamma to fly off somewhere, and most likely, they think that Hidari has come back to life. And in conclusion, Konohamaru began to understand the mechanism behind restoring Moegi or Shinki's life. However, he was also curious about where Shikamaru had obtained such detailed intel about the Togedamma. In fact, Konohamaru felt that this information far exceeded anything Boruto had revealed during the interrogation. Unfortunately, Shikamaru couldn't explain the source of this intel in detail to Konohamaru, as it was highly confidential. When it comes to determining whether intel is reliable or not, Shikamaru alone holds that authority. This means that not everyone, including Konohamaru, can have access to that knowledge. Then returned to the main topic, Shikamaru explained that if the mission this time, he had a strategy based on the information he had. Shikamaru said that the Shinju is a monster with extremely high combat power. They prey on targets like you, Konohamaru, and also Sarada. Naturally, we consider them enemies and need to deal with them. However, this is purely my speculation, and I don't necessarily see them as inherently evil. What I'm trying to say is I see them like newborn wild animals, or perhaps the offspring of savage creatures. Maybe they don't have evil intentions, at least not yet. They're just following their instincts. They're pure, like babies, something like that. But that's what makes them dangerous and a threat to humanity. In conclusion, Shikamaru instructed Konohamaru to try to befriend and get close to the Shinju. By doing so, they would be easier to tame, and while they're still like children without malicious intent, betray them. This might sound cruel, but don't let your guard down. Finish them off in one strike. You know, Naruto would never support this method, but I'm not Naruto. I'm proposing this strategy for the survival of humanity and to defeat a group of monsters that defy reason. And that's the plan Shikamaru laid out for Konohamaru when facing them. And back in the Land of Sand, we again see Ryu, who answers Konohamaru's question, who previously asked them about his identity. Ryu introduced himself to Konohamaru with his name as Ryu, and he also introduced his senior Matsuri. But in this moment, Matsuri really seemed like a very strange person when around Konohamaru. Not even once did Ryu make sure to Matsuri whether she was okay or not. Then in this situation, it looks very familiar, and between them talking to each other like a normal chat. Konohamaru started a question to Ryu and Matsuri about them looking for Boruto. Even with the goal of finding Boruto, Konohamaru said that it was the same goal. And not only that, Konohamaru also offered them to work together to find Boruto, and hearing that, Ryu and Matsuri agreed. Then Konohamaru began trying to identify the toad that Ryu and Matsuri had previously found. This scenario looks very natural and even real. This toad looks like the one Boruto and his partner used to use. What is he doing here? We need to investigate. Yep, good acting, Konohamaru. Oh yeah. Besides the toad, it turns out they also found a suspicious metal object not far from where the toad died, and they concluded that the metal had something to do with a tool that Boruto used to move places. And this is where the real scenario begins. Konohamaru suggested that they divide a team to track and check this area. Sarada, Mitsuki, and the others went to another location to check. And Konohamaru, together with Matsuri, will go to another place. But hearing that plan, Matsuri said that it seemed to be difficult for her to breathe. Even this nervous feeling could not lie if she had a special feeling for Konohamaru. But before that, Sarada called out to Ryu, saying that she had found more traces of Boruto. Because of this, they all eventually split up. Ryu stayed with Sarada and the others, while Matsuri went with Konohamaru. Even with this arrangement, Ryu felt that the Konoha ninjas were truly kind, just as he had heard. Oh yeah, before that, there was a brief flashback of Shikamaru explaining to Konohamaru why he chose him for this mission, and it was none other than the fact that Matsuri had romantic feelings for him. Even with this fact, Konohamaru said it was a bit of an exaggeration, but the main point was that Shikamaru emphasized that the Shinju is our enemy. Based on my intel, it's likely that either Ryu or Matsuri will show up at the location, or perhaps both. Facing them both at once would be bad for us. In that case, we need to separate them. Be as kind as possible. Control the area. That was Shikamaru's message to Konohamaru regarding this mission. And returned to the land of sand. While inspecting the area, Konohamaru felt that the Matsuri did not seem to be feeling well. Even with a face like that, Konohamaru offered to sit somewhere and talk. But before we find out what happens next, the scene returns to Boruto, who is talking to Ida. Boruto tries to ascertain the situation in Suna, and tells Ida to look at it through the eyes of her Senrigun. However, Ada is worried because it will trigger Mamushi to see her. But certainly, Boruto says that Mamushi is somewhere else. But before that, Koji felt that everything seemed to be going well. They also managed to separate Ryu and Matsuri. However, Boruto is worried about what will happen after that. But certainly, Kashin Koji said that Konohamaru managed to take Matsuri somewhere away from Ryu, and now Sarada's group must face Ryu with only 4 people. Then Boruto confirmed to Koji whether the plan had the potential to fail, and how likely were they to fail. But with all the plans currently going well, Koji said that it was unlikely to fail. But in essence, Boruto really wanted to know in detail the bad possibilities if this failed. Even with that fact, Kashin Koji told Boruto to stay here. Just like with Himawari, if you act, then Jura will also act, and if he does anything, he'll kill you for this time. We can't let you die. Never. That's what Koji told Boruto. And on the other hand, the Konoha sensor team is currently sensing that they have detected an intruder. It's the Shinju Jura. Upon receiving that report, Shikamaru then took decisive action and ordered everyone not to act beyond their control, advising them to ignore the situation. He also told them not to bother evacuating the civilians. Most importantly, he instructed them not to cause any commotion and not to touch him. That was Shikamaru's command to Konoha when Jura arrived in the village. And one thing that was very unexpected and also sounded funny was when Jura bought a book at the bookstore by going into debt. That's right, this is just a down payment. I'll take it back after I pay it all off. And the shopkeeper's response was, of course, just to comply without protest. Treating him like a normal customer, the shopkeeper told the Jura that they looked forward to his next visit. But before we know exactly what Jura did in Konoha, the scene returns to Kawaki, who is currently coming to Amado to remove his limiter in order to get true power to the limit. But before we really know what will happen, unfortunately spoilers only until here. Maybe this spoiler is not like usual with an original picture of the actual chapter. I used some pictures from the previous chapter to make it easier to understand, and I hope you enjoy my explanation of chapter 17. I'll update as soon as the official chapter is released. I'm Nim. Thank you for supporting this channel by subs, likes, and also joining the Akatsuki gang. See you in the next video.